and thank you everyone for joining. My name is Michael Mintz, and I'm on the real estate board, a member of McCore, and most importantly for today, I am also on Jewish National Fund's Fire and Rescue Task Force. For those of you who are not familiar with the Fire and Rescue Task Force, so we are a group of lay leaders who help raise money to support the construction of fire stations and donations of fire trucks and fire equipment throughout Israel. There is I'd say it's a decent sized group at this point, and we actually have quite a few young leaders who are on the Fire and Rescue Task Force. For me in particular, it's been an extremely meaningful experience. I originally joined because I was inspired by the fact that there was not a building code in Israel that requires smoke detectors to be installed in every building in Israel. And so there actually are quite a number of deaths that happen every year by smoke inhalation in Israel. And so I've been working with the Fire and Rescue Task Force and Yael, who I'm going to introduce in a minute, and the Fire Commissioner's Office to work on a project that hopefully shortly we'll be able to start distributing smoke detectors throughout Israel to help with that. But also as part of the JNF-Future group within the Fire and Rescue Task Force, we've also been working to raise money for fire equipment and other kind of peripheral kind of supplemental products that are needed throughout the Fire and Rescue Task Force. I think Yael will speak a little bit more about fire and rescue and whatnot. But let me quickly introduce you to Yael Levinton. Yael received her MA from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem in politics, economics, and international law. Yael joined the JNF family as the firefighters liaison in 2010. Fast forward almost 11 years, and she is now the affiliates coordinator responsible for all of the 30 plus JNF affiliates and spearheading special projects as they arise. She lives in Beit Shemesh with her husband and 5 children and is a proud hashtag boy mom. I actually did not write that, so I'm not sure what that means. Maybe Yael could explain that one. But please welcome Yael. And I've had the pleasure to work with her for a couple of years now. Obviously, she'll talk more about the experience, but she really is extremely committed and a great participant in the JNF Fire and Rescue Task Force.
Hi, thank you, Michael. So yes, hashtag boy mom. I have 5 boys. That's where the hashtag came from. And that's what I've been using on my social media when I talk about my family. So I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm actually going to share my screen with you. So give me just 1 second. I want this. Okay, can you just tell me when you guys, when you see it in the right mode? Just pick up your fingers. Do you see it now? All right, let's go. Israel Fire and Rescue Authority and how we're connected to JNF. So I'm going to give a little bit of a history and then kind of dive into what we've already done and where we're going. This is actually in the Gaza envelope, but we'll get to that as well. A little bit of history, and Michael already knows this, so bear with me, Michael. How did JNF and the firefighters, start working together? So the relationship actually started after the Second Lebanon War back in 2006. Shimon Romach was the commissioner at that time, and he had created an organization that was called Friends of Israel Firefighters. And their whole purpose of this organization was to equip the firefighters with up-to-date trucks and stations and equipment and whatever they need. We used to say that there was the favorite son and the forgotten son. So the favorite son was obviously the IDF, and the forgotten sons were the firefighters. So if the firefighters working in any city were under a municipality that had money, they had equipment, they had trucks, they had stations, they had whatever they needed to go do their job. If, for instance, you were a firefighter in Yerucham or in Dimona, which are cities that do not have, a lot of money, then they wouldn't have the equipment that they need. They would not have the fire trucks. And that's why this organization came about. Over the years, Shimon Romach stepped down, new commissioners came up. They decided to close the organization completely. JNF, which was the Friends of Israel Firefighters' initial partner in the fundraising efforts, really all of the fundraising came from the US, came from JNF anyway, decided that we're going to continue to support the Fire and Rescue Authority in Israel and work directly. Today, Very important to say that Jewish National Fund USA is the only organization in the world can donate directly to the state of Israel, because as of 2010, fire and rescue are no longer divided to 28 regions across Israel, but they're all under the Ministry of Internal Defense. Another aspect that we could talk about is the connection between the United States and Israel with our JNF-USA 9/11 Living Memorial, which is right outside the hills of Jerusalem. Every year on 9/11, obviously we didn't have it this year because of COVID and we did it remotely, but every year we all get together to pay our respects, to remember. And this is the only place outside of the US that recognizes all the names of the people that were killed in 9/11 attack. Whoever hasn't been there, I highly recommend that when the skies open up in your next trip to Israel, when you come home, to take a moment, take a couple hours and come see this beautiful site right outside of Jerusalem. So what have we done over the years? What has Jewish National Fund USA done with fire and rescue authorities? Well, for one thing, we've donated close to 200 fire trucks. So just to put things in proportion, before JNF got involved, there were trucks that were driving on the street, and I kid you not, that were from the 1980s and the 1970s. The firefighters would say that they can run faster to an event than drive there. They would be going down Route 1, which is one of Israel's main highways, and they would have like these little cars zoom, zoom, zoom past them, and they would just be like trucking along with this old vehicle. JNF got involved. They had asked the commissioner at the time, what do you guys need? And the commissioner said, I need new vehicles, I need new stations, and that's exactly what JNF did. We helped build a fire station in Usafia, in Akko, in Ma'alot, in Mitzpe Ramon, and Yerucham. Just as an FYI, a very close friend of mine and also Michael, Penny Rosen, she is the one that dedicated not only the Ma'alot fire station, but also the Mitzpe Ramon fire station, which is absolutely incredible and just shows how committed the people are in our task force. And of course, we funded and purchased protective gear for our firefighters, millions and millions of dollars. So that's what we've done till now. A little bit of an update about COVID-19, because I know that what's going on in the States is not what's going on here in Israel. As of today, some of the kids have gone back to school. Some of the kids are still remote learning with Zoom. The malls are not open. The stores are not open. You could do takeaway or you can have delivery. You cannot sit at restaurants. There are so many things that you're allowed to do and not allowed to do that every day it changes. So it's very confusing to keep track of everything. But our firefighters actually continue their work nonstop. What they did is that they broke off to capsules. Our firefighters work 24 hours on and then 48 hours off. So what they basically did is that the station broke up to different capsules. So you'd be working with the same capsule, the 24 hours on and then 48 hours off. So there's a limit of crossover between the firefighters, who obviously go home at the end of the day. Even though there's COVID, that does not mean the car accident stops, that fire stops, that the balloons from Gaza stop, and our firefighters have continued to work, to respond to emergencies, to assist. And not only that, but they also go out to the public spaces and they clean the area so it's safe, kind of to slow the infections. The same with the schools. They'll go around and spray it down with whatever it is. Just trying to work as best as they can with minimum exposure, obviously. That's actually one of our, the picture on the left is our station up in Usafia. On the right, they're just smiling because they're awesome guys. Gaza envelope situation. Guys, I don't know how much comes through the media or the social media with what's happening in the Gaza envelope, because we've noticed that a lot of times the media is kind of quieted down because it's kind of like this happens every day. The balloons, the explosive devices come from the Gaza Strip towards Israel, are attached with balloons, with condoms, with whatever they can get their hands on, with kites, and they launch them into Israel. The wind blows them over and they fall down on the Israeli side. Just last month, they had 70 fires at the same time, and therefore they need so much help, so much equipment, and we're going to get to that in a second, because this is really where we're going to see the shift between the firefighters to where we're moving forward, which is going to be the volunteer fire and rescue of firefighters. Thank God none of these fires caused any injuries, but of course it's completely traumatic, and it's taken down people's livelihood. A lot of the people there are farmers, so a lot of damage. So let's talk about how we're moving on to a new direction. These are our firefighters, by the way, at the school. We are planning on purchasing new fire trucks for these volunteers. They do not have the tender out in Israel, meaning what exactly the fire truck is going to look like, but I assume it will look like a mash of these 3 trucks that you guys have in the US. Why are we doing this? For one thing, they've decided that the larger fire trucks don't always get to where they need to get to fast enough. They can't get deep enough. And also we're talking about now only moving forward with volunteers. So to get a license on the really big red fire trucks that we all know and love is very difficult and very expensive. And these are volunteers. So they had to find a solution where the volunteer firefighters can come, they can work, they can use the vehicles. This was their idea. So they're still working on the tender, and to get, because they're government officials, it has to go through a tender. There's a process, legal stuff going on, but it's going to look something like this. And of course, we are selling these fire trucks for $125,000 each. Just them again. We are doing volunteer fire stations. We actually just closed with our lovely Penny Rosen, yet again, another fire station. With the Galpern family. So it's 2 families coming together. We're just waiting to figure out where we want to build this, find out, what the matching funds are going to be as well. The minute that the commissioner has a plan, this is going to be our first volunteer fire stations, and these go for $250,000. Really cool pictures. And of course, Michael talked about this, which is our equipment fund. Guys, this equipment fund is so important. To outfit one firefighter in Israel from head to toe is $1,800. Okay, there's 1,600 volunteers across Israel. Something that's very important even now because of COVID, this is all individual equipment. What does that mean? It means that if I have a firefighter and I'm buying him the jackets, the boots, the pants, the breathing apparatuses, he takes that home at the end of the day. He's not giving it to another firefighter the following day. He's not washing it and moving it forward. It's individual. So if that volunteer decides to, pick up and leave, and that's fine, that's his prerogative, you got to let him go, and he takes his equipment with him. Our volunteers obviously are being trained by professional firefighters, good 6 to 9 months, and then they have follow-up trainings as well. It's not just Levant and deciding one morning that I feel like to fight some fires today and put on my heels, but actual commitment and time and tests, not so simple, and yet we're doing it. So these are our firefighters on the left, and on the right, that puppy is just too cute, I had to share. So that's the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing so I can, go deeper into also the questions, but also to explain a little bit about the Gaza envelope and why we've been working so hard there as well. So when I was speaking with our volunteer firefighters on the Gaza envelope, they said that they work as a unit. What the firefighters are doing is that they are taking the professional firefighters, let's call them the red firefighters, from the periphery where JNF works, and they're bringing them into the center of Israel or to the larger cities. So they'll put them in Beersheba, in Yerushalayim, in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, right? But then north of Haifa, you'd have like Kiryat Shmona, and then you'd have Shlomi, which is really far off in the periphery. What they're planning on doing, and this is what the commissioner's whole plan is, Russell Robinson, let me take a step back. Russell Robinson, our CEO, came to Israel when the skies were still open, when we can still hug people. And he said, what do you guys want? Because you said you wanted vehicles, and we got you vehicles. You said you wanted stations, and we built you stations. You said you needed equipment, and we did equipment. What do you need now? Like moving forward, what do you see as the most important? And the commissioner, Daddy Simchi, stopped and he thought, and he said, I really want to build the volunteer units. That is what's important to me. And I'll explain why. With fire, it's all a matter of timing. From the minute the fire breaks out till the call goes into the firefighters, till the time the firefighters get to where the fire is, right? So you want it to be under 7 minutes. They can't do that in the periphery. They need to have volunteer firefighters already there, and then they can start working on the fire, start, putting it out, doing what they have to do, rescue anybody that's captured. And at the same time, the professional red firefighters would come from the main cities with the larger trucks to back them up. because statistically, the larger cities have more fires, they have car accidents, they have terror attacks. It doesn't make sense to leave a large truck sitting in the periphery where usually it's not going to be used as much. So that is their thinking. That's the logic that they're using. If we can create volunteer, homes, volunteer stations all across the periphery of Israel, all the way up north, all the way down south, that saves us on time, on manpower, and just makes a lot of sense. So that's what the commissioner wanted. Russell Robinson said that's not a problem. That's what we're going to do. When I was speaking with my friends down in Chalutza, which is on the border with Egypt and with Gaza, and the Eshkol region that get hit all the time from these horrible balloons and kites and bombs, basically, they said that the large fire trucks, the red ones, are actually a problem because they're a target. They're huge. So they're not allowed to get closer to the border because of the snipers on the other side. Crazy. They wouldn't have thought that this is, something that they have to think about. What JNF said is, okay, how can we solve this problem? So they came up with two different sort of equipment vehicles that we purchased for them. One is a wagon, which is $50,000, and one is a quick response vehicle, which is kind of like a Ranger, and that is $75,000. And that's where we're really focusing on right now, to be able to give them 10, 12, 15 of these vehicles that are, they won't be seen as easily as the big red large trucks. And when I was speaking with the volunteers there, they said just the other day they had a fire. These little RVs can get a lot closer in to the actual fire, to where it fell down, the initial beginning of whatever fire it is. And the red firefighters jumped on their equipment to go work together. And the beautiful thing about it is that the quick response vehicles, also known as the Rangers or the wagons, can connect by hoses. So I'm told, I'm sure I'm doing it wrong with my hands, but they connect to the large fire trucks that are waiting, behind the scenes, because nobody wants to be shot when they go to work. They want to protect the people. Our firefighters and our volunteer firefighters are so brave. They're running into the fires, they're running into the rescues where everybody is running out, and they're doing their work. So our job on our side is to make sure that they have the best equipment, the best vehicles, that they can go out, do their job, at the end of the day, go home to their family and their loved ones. So that's my presentation, really briefly, and I'm really happy to answer any questions anybody has. So if you want to put it back to the screen where I could see everybody, Sarah, that would be great. No? Okay, I put it on gallery view. Now I could see everybody. Does anyone have a question?
I'll ask one.
Hey, okay.
Hi, nice to meet everybody. I guess I just wanted to know how you first got involved with firefighting in this organization, just a little bit of personal about you.
So that was way back in 2010. I just had my second son, and I was looking for a job, and I met my then boss, Ariel Cutler, who's an amazing fundraiser. And he brought me to an interview, and he said, what's the 3 most important things in fundraising? And I'll never forget this, because I literally had heard it just out of corner of my ear the other day by someone who had mentioned it to me. And I was like, well, people give to people, and it has to be fun, and it's all about networking. And he said, you're hired. And I said, great, what's the job? And he's like, well, I need you to be a liaison for fire and rescue. And I was like, great, what's fire and rescue? And I was super young and super timid and very scared of everything. And you have these big, firefighters, and I was working out of one of the stations in Ayalon. And it was awesome because I got to know these guys, and I got to see that they are such good people. And the minute that I realized, you look at a firefighter and you think, oh, maybe it's the calendar or what we see on, the TV shows. And then I realized that they're such melech haaretz is what you call it in Israel. It's like the salt of the sand of the ground. I don't know how I could translate it to just tell you that they're just such amazing, amazing, amazing people. Kind and so dedicated to the work that they're doing. So then I started doing the fundraising with him back in 2010, and I was working under Friends of Israel Firefighters. And once that organization closed down, Russell Robinson is like, now you're going to come work for Jewish National Fund. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And kind of the years went by and I've taken on more responsibilities. And now we have 30 affiliates that I'm responsible for in Israel. When I say affiliates, I mean different organizations that we work with. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much.
They're good guys. When you come and I'll introduce you to them, you'll understand why we're so passionate about them. Why Penny Rosen, who's our co-chairperson for our task force, Michael knows her. She just fell in love with them and they fell in love with her. They call her the mom of the firefighters. She's the Ema. And that's why everybody in our task force is so dedicated, because it's about the people. You know, people give to people. It's about their stories and about their needs. And we're helping making Israel, you know, really strong. That's pretty cool.
That's great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Anyone else? We got some time. Adam? Adam's my buddy. Adam's on my task force. Adam, do you have anything to add? You're on mute.
I was actually going to ask the question that Michelle asked, more about your background and how you got involved. I mean, you've pretty much really encapsulated what the key areas are and what the most pressing issues are. I don't know if you can speak more about it. You know, what are the top needs over the next, 6 to 12 months, maybe?
Okay, that's a good question, Adam. I think for the next 6 to 12 months, I would focus on our equipment fund, and I'll tell you what. We need to outfit these volunteers. They do not have the basics like boots. They do not have the right clothing that they need, and it's $1,800 for a firefighter. Problem is, I cannot buy individual firefighter equipment, meaning I have to wait until there's a bulk. So I know that we just got $100,000 from 2 donors. It was a matching fund, and now we're able to buy for 65. I think it's 65 volunteers in Eshkol and Chalutza. So we buy it as a package. So as long as the equipment fund keeps getting, donations in and the word gets out and people understand what it is, we're able to actually, make the larger buy. So for me, I would say that's definitely a priority that we have to start thinking creatively how to get more people engaged with it. Also, I think because the donation is $1,800, I think it's more accessible to a lot of people, especially now throughout COVID. And then from there, the jump would definitely be to the wagons, which are $50K, and then to the quick response vehicles for $75. I would say that those are our priorities right now. The vehicles are going to take some time because of the tender I explained to you guys. And same goes for the station. So I would wait with those and focus more on what we can actually accomplish a lot quicker.
And what does each individual firefighter get as part of this package of equipment?
So he gets boots and pants and a jacket and a breathing apparatus. It's kind of like a helmet thingy as well. This is, like I said, very individual. There's no way, definitely with COVID, that I would ask anyone to leave their equipment. Also, they're buying their shoes according to their size, and it mushes to their feet. So definitely not something I think any one of us would want to share with somebody else. Especially due to the fact that they're sweating and running and doing all that stuff in it. So that's what they get. And if we have more funds, meaning after we've given everyone the basics, I know that there's people in our task force that would like us to get more advanced equipment, everything obviously working with the Fire and Rescue Authority to make sure that it's needed, that it's approved. And then, yeah, definitely the sky is the limit. I mean, they need so much stuff, but if we don't have the basics for them, I don't feel comfortable, buying the drones and the other things that they need, because you have firefighters running in with their sneakers. That's not going to work.
What's the current size of the volunteer fire service in Israel? What's the goal?
So right now they're planning to have 1,600. That's the number of volunteers that are kind of active, but not active because they still don't have everything put in place. But I would say 1,600 now, and they wanted to go up to 5,000 even if they could. It all depends if we can find place to house them, if they have the vehicles, if they have the equipment. but that's the goal.
I have a question.
Sure,
First,
Becky.
Thank you so much for being on. I know it's late. I like to ask this to like all of our affiliates, so I should ask you, what's your proudest moment working with JNF? Or just in Israel doing what you do every day?
I think that there are times where I have these aha moments, because sometimes we all get jaded, right? It's our job, it's something that we do. And then there'll be moments where you just stand there and you're like, we made this happen. And that just takes your breath away. And I can't even like say, okay, this was the moment, because it's happened over the 11 years, 12 years that I've been working with JNF. There've been moments like that where I just get like, we did that, you know, and then you got to get back to work because there are people around you that need things to happen. So it's very like a brief moment that feels really, really good. And you're like, I get it. And that gives you the strength to continue doing more stuff. So there have definitely been times where I'm a big crier. Put me in any ceremony, anytime, and I'm like bawling out, my makeup's all over my face, and I'm just like, this is so amazing. And then everyone's like, yeah, you gotta go finish what you're supposed to be doing right now. But there's always moments that are just gonna make you really happy. So that's always pretty cool. Also, my kids think I'm a firefighter half the time. I mean, till they grow up, and then they're like, no, she's not.
You?
Yeah. I've had donors, I've had partners in the US ask me. I always get confused, the donors, the partners, the affiliates. I know it's very confusing lingo, but a lot of times the donors are like, so you're a firefighter. I was like, what gave it away? Yes, with the 5-inch heels, that's me. No, I'm not a firefighter, but I did get to ride on a lot of fire trucks, and I got to go up and do really cool things that I wouldn't have been able to do. And I've been able to take my kids with me, and they're happy to see, you know, mom doing something for Israel. So that means a lot. It's a good place to be. It's my home. JNF is literally my home. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions?
Michael?
Well, Michael, if you want to take it away and close us out, we'd appreciate it.
Sorry about that. Give me 1 second.
Are we sure nobody has any questions left for you,
Guys, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Facebook and on WhatsApp and on emails and wherever JNF is, I'm there as well. So really feel free. Also, I'm up for another couple hours anyway. So if you have like a pressing question, definitely you can email me. And if you want to know how you can get involved, Michael can tell you as well how you can join our task force. It's a fun task force, right, Michael?
Yeah, no, so I would love to see everyone join the task force, and obviously I'm available if anyone has questions or kind of has any follow-ups that they'd like to learn more about the task force or any of our specific projects or anything. So wanted to thank Yael for her time today, and thank you all for joining us. You'll hear from myself or other JNF-Future professionals following this event with more information about how you can have a direct impact on Israel through Jewish National Fund. In December, we have quite a few upcoming events that you'll want to mark on your calendars. You should all have received our monthly newsletter yesterday. If not, you can stay up to date by going to jnf.org/on-demand or by following us on social media at JNF-Future. On December 11th at 5:30 p.m. at 5:30 p.m. in every time zone. Oh, that's interesting. Good job, JNF. That's kind of cool. So at 5:30 p.m. in every time zone, we'll be having our monthly JNF-Future virtual Shabbat event. On December 15th, we will be having a Hanukkah event featuring a cooking demonstration of latkes and sufganiyot. You can cook along with everyone or save the recipe for later in the week. Our next update with Israel will be on Sunday, December 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. We will have the Chief Executive Officer of the Galilee Culinary Institute discussing the impact it is having on the North. And I will tell you, I actually had a parlor meeting with, I believe, Nathan, I believe is his name, from the Galilee Culinary Institute. First of all, he has a very cool background, very cool story in terms of how he got to JNF, kind of his background and what he's working on. And the Culinary Institute especially is really interesting, and actually they're making a lot of adjustments to kind of their curriculum and their program given COVID, and kind of how they're going to be training people, how they're going to be teaching restaurateurs to adjust their financial planning so that they have more reserves and they can kind of cope with pandemics like this in the future and hopefully not be hit as hard. So it's actually really cool, and I think you guys are going to love hearing from Nathan if you guys are available for that one. So thank you guys all very much. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving. And once again, if anyone has any questions or anything else from me, please feel free to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you everyone so much. If you want to get Yael's contact information, please reach out to one of us and we will provide you with it. Have a great rest of your day.